All right, let me get you side by side, Andy,
Awesome.
and I'll take the chat overlay. And if you have questions, please let us know in the chat. I did promise while I was walking through the Caesars Hall here that I would do at least one more live stream from here. And you and I were chatting, and kind of like I had you know this the idea of doing like a reinvent kind of recap, right? And this
Yeah.
is I want to do a more formal one after I had a chance to kind of sleep. If you
Yeah.
noticed, I have a lot more energy from my previous live stream because I had one of these. Um, but you and I wanted to kind of share kind of this bounce back, because you and I always talk and we have great bounce backs and stuff
Sure.
like that. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to kind of, as someone who's also done a lot of the Microsoft ecosystem, um, this conferences and stuff like that. So it'd be good to get your kind of thoughts, and we can do like a quick Q&A and stuff. At least as long as they don't shut off the conference Wi-Fi. So
Oh,
if I
I hope they
suddenly
don't shut
drop,
it off.
no, and my hotspot's flaking out, so I don't know what's going on.
Oh,
It's that kind of. But I
oh
found like the
no.
one quiet place in Las Vegas, which I did not think I would find, because that's the
Wow.
thing that
Good.
sucks
Good
about,
job.
like, the stinks about like, unless you leave real early, there's no flights to the East Coast unless they're red eyes, and you have to check out of your
Mm,
hotel. So I have like nowhere. There's a couple of museums and
yeah.
stuff I want to check out. The Neon
Yeah. Yeah.
Museum. My Uber driver told me about the Mafia Museum and history of Las Vegas. That'll
Oh,
be
interesting.
interesting. I guess the
Okay.
statute of limitations has run out, so they can.
I was going to make a crude joke about that, Frank, but you beat me to it already. I was going to say something like, "Well,
Hopefully.
that's kind of like you going to ancestry.com, right?" I mean,
Oh, that's funny.
hmm, that's
Um,
okay. You could say
but
the same to me about moonshiners and stuff like that, so it all works out.
It's true. So anyway, so I shared kind of my initial thoughts. Is
Yeah,
that this scale of this conference is something that is unprecedented, at least for me.
yeah,
I've done tech ed, I've done build, I've done
hmm,
um, you know what's the other one? Inspire and Ignite.
yeah.
One of the interesting things of the Amazon ecosystem is that they roll it all into one. It's all reInvent.
Nice.
So, and at first glance, you're like, wow, logistically, this seems to create a lot of problems. But everybody is here. Anyone who can
Mm,
be here is, right?
hmm.
And it's not like you have to hit up 3 conferences a year, right? And that was always a thing.
Uh-oh, Frank. I hope they didn't turn off
Can
your.
you still hear me?
You're coming back now. I can hear you. Yeah, I was
Okay.
worried they turned off your internet.
I know. We just need Mr. Bezos just another 15 minutes of internet. He can afford it. Um, it's very interesting to kind of have all of this in one place. And the thing that really blew my
Right.
mind, because I mean, they're very powerful. But what's interesting was, and I wish I had seen this earlier. I was walking through Caesar's Forum, and there was just like this whole, like, just lounge, right, where people in this aisle, they work for AWS public sector. People in this aisle work for AWS um, telecom and automotive and
Hmm.
energy, and all of the verticals were there. And I also know,
Yeah.
because a former manager from Microsoft is in AWS FSI, they've had their own events all happening around the same time.
Interesting.
So it's an interesting kind of, so if you were at this conference, right, so and I wanted to get back into FSI, right,
Hmm.
I could go over to the just do a search for FSI, and I can attend all of those things. So it's an interesting kind of mishmash. Plus, they have an attendee kind of directory where you can interact with other attendees and network and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And because it is the one conference to rule them all,
Yeah.
um, it, everybody's here. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting mix of people. Another interesting thing, and I won't make a Rednet joke about it, is the rodeo is in town.
Woot.
So and that is so reInvent is brings about 75,000 people to Vegas. The
Goodness.
rodeo brings 150,000. So
So
before the
y'all
big
are
event
outnumbered.
weekend, well, now we are, because like people here are leaving and then like everyone's coming in, because there was like
I
a whole
see.
like, road convention before the main events this weekend. But it's pretty funny. I was
Right.
joking with I was in the Las Vegas monorail because the shuttle bus was shut down, and it's pretty clear who's attending what. You know what I mean? Like I was joking, like, you know, it wouldn't take a lot to train a computer vision model to determine who's attending which conference.
You know, I'd be a
But,
great test case for that.
You would be an edge case. You'd be on the line.
I could be.
I'm sorry.
I could
shouldn't say.
be. Yeah.
My fun fact: my niece's ex-boyfriend is in Western Pennsylvania, and he's trying to get on the rodeo circuit. Like, it's a whole thing. Like, it's a
Nice.
whole. I didn't know it was like as huge as it was. Certainly out west, I mean, it makes sense. But on the East Coast, apparently, it's also a thing. Which
Yeah.
is not.
Oh, all over. Yeah.
I didn't know
it's
that.
all over.
Yeah, that's news to me. But it's
Very
cool.
cool.
I got my speaker badge.
Very cool,
So-
Frank. Congrats.
And I'm streaming to you on a MacBook.
What?
So let's just back that up. I'm in an AWS conference on a MacBook. People can change.
You have jumped like two fences at once.
I know, right? Well, it's funny because I think it was Noelle who also came from Microsoft, and she was a Red Hat, and now she's doing like a bunch of cool stuff. But she's like, "Who are you anymore?" Like, which is pretty funny.
That's so funny.
But I had a thought and I lost it. So my talk went well.
Oh, good.
The topic of our talk, and I was talking to, so I was one of three presenters, and we were talking about how Red Hat OpenShift Data Science helped Boston University deliver like the next generation of educational tools.
Nice.
And I had a demo. The original presenter, who was the professor that we worked with, couldn't make it because he was sick.
Oh,
And
oh no.
Which then I took his role as the speaker. So all's well that ends well, I guess.
Yep,
He's feeling
yeah.
better. So
Good.
that's good. So I did a talk. I showed kind of the, you know, how this you know, these textbooks work, how you can integrate with other courses and from other universities, and how it all
Nice.
works together, and it just works. And the fact that Rhodes does all the heavy lifting
Yeah.
on top of what there's a service, a first party. It's not really first party. I don't want to get in trouble, but a premier, like it's treated like a premier service on AWS. It's called ROSA, or Red Hat OpenShift
Okay.
service on AWS. So Rhodes runs on top of that. Rhodes runs on anywhere OpenShift runs. So they were
Nice.
able to, at the university, they were very hesitant to go into the cloud. They I don't want to say they went kicking and screaming, but they definitely went mumbling and complaining. And so they set this up in December for courses that started in January. So this was weeks, and they scaled. It was able to scale up, scale down. Very robust, very strong, and very powerful.
Wow. Lost you here, Frank. This is unusual for me. Usually you're losing me. I heard something. Are you back? No. Oh no. Oh, now you're back. I see you.
Oh, I'm back. Okay. I was going to do that. Sorry. So you can tell, folks, this really is live. This really is a hot take, because there's
It
no
is.
I didn't have a chance to set up a backup. I was just like, you have fast, shiny new internet, and
I do.
you're looking good, Andy. Like,
Thank you.
you know, like really high res, Andy. I kind of like it.
I don't know. People can see more of me now. That's scary.
I hadn't thought of it that way. But what's interesting is I don't know where we cut off, but they basically
you were talking about how they were scaling up and scaling down at the university.
They were scaling up, scaling down, and this one proof of concept was so popular, it was so met, and it exceeded their expectations that now there's several ROSA clusters that the university has. So
Nice.
so it really kind of sold itself. And that's another thing I've noticed, that if you've read Amazon has these things called the LPs, or the leadership principles, not liquid propane, so they have this whole thing where it talks about customer obsession, and like every talk that had an AWS person, customer obsession came up. Like it's a thing, like it's very real. Like the talk I was just in was about how AWS uses IoT and artificial intelligence and streaming data to optimize the environmental impact of all of their facilities.
That is so cool.
And it was fascinating how it works. And they talk about how they work backwards. They kind of think of what the customer obsession is, what's the end goal, and then they work backwards from that, which is a very and that is something I've consistently seen through the week. And that it's interesting how the culture of AWS is infused inside of this conference. And I'm not saying that that's not the case at other conferences, but it is interesting because there is a consistent underlying theme, as it were. So I can tilt the camera here because now the high roller Ferris wheel is now moving.
Cool.
So if you want to see my talk from reInvent, it will be available soon. But I did talk to my co-presenters, and we're going to do a live stream version of it at some point in the near future, because it's just so good. Like, and it's really cool. And I also dug up, because we're in Vegas, a reinforcement learning demo that I made a couple of years ago that handles the multi-armed bandit problem. So because you're in Vegas, you're talking about like coursework, computer science, assembly language programming stuff. So I ended the demo with like this. How do you create a reinforcement learning bot that can find the best paying slot machine in the bank of slots? So that was kind of cool to do, and and I actually modified it because I had some time, because I was thinking on the plane, like, how can I make this better? See, I'm being customer obsessed. The only way the way I thought about making it better, you might have reviewed this article. This was the bones of this came from one of my reinforcement learning articles from MSDN. Cool. And what I added to it was, because I ran out of time with the article, is basically if you have an epsilon greedy, I probably should explain epsilon greedy. If you, growing up in Jersey, right, we would occasionally go to Atlantic City, and you would always see.
Uh-oh, you dropped out again, Frank. But I remember where you were. Okay, you're back.
Am I back?
You dropped out you would go to Atlantic City and occasionally something.
So you would always see the old ladies that would be like pulling on the same slot machine for hours at a time, and they you would get 1 bonus point for seeing them, 4 bonus points if they were smoking, and 16 bonus points smoking engines. Joke, but I am.
That sounds dangerous.
But it was common to see that. So the idea of epsilon Greek, because in math everything has to be named after a Greek letter, so it's the idea of, do you explore other machines, or do you exploit the resources that you're already aware of? Right. That's basically it. So it's called greedy because if you just exploit and you don't explore, then you're being kind of very greedy. I found something that works. I'm sticking with it. I'm not even trying anything else. But
Yeah.
in the article and in demo, I start off with, hey, look, of zero greedy, this is what your results are. It's not, it's not that great. Extremely greedy, you really lose. Your score that you would get is really low. And then so I call it the Gordon-Gekko hypothesis. Like, at what point is greed no longer good, right? And so basically, I went through and it's a good test of the system, right? So I basically run the same simulation, but I run it. I run 5,000 draws 100 times, right?
Okay.
And I need another one of these to do the math. But what's cool is, like, I had it on a cluster that could just do that in a split second, and you would actually see that apparently Gordon-Gekko was right, but only if you're greedy, somewhere around 10 to 15% of the time.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. We should probably do like a live stream on that now that you have the fancy internet. But
yeah, exactly.
But I will say that this trip to Vegas is not the usual trip to Vegas. Is like, you land and you're like, you walk around and you're like, I'm such a curmudgeon. Like, why do I hate this place? Why is that? It's not so bad. And then like 12 hours later, you're like, oh yeah, this is why I don't like this place. And then 24 hours to 36 hours, you're like, I have to go home. I have to go home. I got to get out of this town. This time it wasn't that way. And I think it was because the hotel I was staying at was the Tropicana.
Okay.
Which, like I told you, I think when I landed, like, I'm not sure if any second I'm going to see Frank Sinatra like come around the corner, because it is very old and very old school. It looks exactly like one of the hotels in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, like the decor, like hasn't probably not changed since the 70s, since that book was written. And it's just interesting. But one thing I do appreciate is that the overall of chaos, and because we're at one end of the strip, maybe because it is an older, definitely an older crowd. The intensity of all the machines and stuff. Hey, you're closing the space. Okay. 1 o'clock. Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So they are kicking me out of in a few minutes, so I can finish this up. Okay. But it was nice to be able to go over there and just kind of like not have the manicness of Vegas. I've noticed since I can't go back to my room now because I checked out, the manicness of Vegas is starting to get to me. So I will be very, very, very happy to be home. That's for sure. So awesome. I'm sure this is just a hot take. I'm sure that there's just a lot of stuff, but I will say is they were even very nice about kicking me out. They're like, just finish up your call. So I don't want to abuse that.
I could see. Yeah.
But it is a nice day here. It's not too hot. It's not too cold.
Nice.
And I'm probably going to have a sunburn because I've been out here because it's just nice and quiet. But with that, I'm going to end the stream. Any just questions or thoughts, or just kind of, I know I was doing a whole stream of consciousness and like brain dump on
No,
this,
it's been, I really love the brain dump. I'm glad you suggested it. I'm glad we were able to work it out. Just praying for safe travels all the way home, Frank. And as usual, man, let me know when you get back. And I'm really glad you got the opportunity to go. I've not been to a reInvent yet. You are the second close friend who has told me I should go. And I look forward to some more shows next week because with my new show.
Oh, absolutely. Internet. That's right.
All right. We have a debate coming, by the way. There you go. We have a debate. I'll tease this. Frank learned a lot. You learned an awful lot about AWS, the architecture, kind of the philosophy behind it. I have I've not learned that much. I'm interested to see because I still think Azure is pretty cool. You're telling me you think AWS has. Yeah. So anyway,
sorry. What AWS has what?
AWS has
another gentleman has reminded me it's time to go. Oh, the core philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be either or, right? I drink both Coke and Pepsi. I drink tea and coffee, right? Like it's not
right. Same here.
It doesn't have to be either or. But
cool.
With that, I'm gonna go. Maybe I'll get some lunch because I haven't eaten, and I still have been able to more or less do intermittent fasting out here. I wouldn't say I've been totally keto out here, but yeah. So let's. No, so yeah, we should definitely, for those that are watching this, just if you're watching this live, say hashtag live, and if you're watching this on the replay, hashtag replay. And if you have any questions, because we're going to do a couple of shows on this, because this was just a massive conference. Like, if I could go back in time to when I went to my first Microsoft conference and kind of just share the experience. Actually, I did. I blogged about it, but that blog data was deleted. Let me see if they'll let me. The Wi-Fi will work as I walk out to the exit here. So it's just kind of like it's for someone who's been in the industry as long as we've been, to get exposed to a new ecosystem.
Yes.
Right. Not just a new technology, because that happens every few weeks, but just a new ecosystem. So here's the AWS. They call it industry networking.
Nice. Okay, cool.
I dare not sit down because they're probably clearing this out too.
Sure.
But no, it's an interesting. It's been a learning experience, and like, you know, you and me go way back in the Microsoft ecosystem. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think that to only have ever drank Pepsi and you have your first sip of Coke or Red Bull, right?
Yeah.
It's a different experience. It's a different, I don't know. But the French say, I don't know what, right?
Yeah.
But what was really cool was, this was a cool story. So after my talk, somebody from somebody from Northern Virginia stopped by, and he's like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I used to be at Microsoft, and I knew you when you were tablet MVP, and he did a lot of stuff with Surface and stuff like that.
Nice.
So I got to go because I'm getting a phone call.
Okay, Frank.
So I'll
Safe
see you later.
travels, brother. Alrighty, bye.